What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. In this video, I'm going to do a penetration test with my Marlin 1895 22-inch barrel 4570, and I'm going to be shooting some Underwood ammo, Xtreme Penetrators, and Xtreme Hunters at some regular half-inch plywood. And the purpose of the test is to see how many sheets of plywood the Underwood ammo 4570 plus P 305 grain Xtreme Penetrator and the 325 grain Xtreme Hunter can penetrate through. These rounds are marketed for penetration, and that's what they're advertised as being really good at. So I want to see how many sheets of regular half-inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood these rounds can penetrate through. So I'll just give you guys a closer look at these rounds here. So you have the 305 grain Xtreme Penetrator, which is on the right here, and it's made of brass. And on the left you have the 325 grain Xtreme Hunter, which is some kind of a copper alloy. So the Xtreme Penetrator is going to be a little bit harder than the Xtreme Hunter because brass is harder than copper. The Xtreme Penetrator has kind of a flatter nose. There's more flat surface on the Xtreme Penetrator than the Xtreme Hunter. So I'm curious if the Xtreme Penetrator will penetrate deeper than the Xtreme Hunter because it is made of brass, which is harder than copper, and because it has more of a flat nose or flatter surfaces on the nose, it should be able to theoretically penetrate deeper. So Underwood Ammo advertises the Xtreme Penetrator as having a muzzle velocity of 2,350 feet per second, and the Xtreme Hunter as having a muzzle velocity of 2,275 feet per second. And I have chronograph tested these rounds out of my 22-inch barrel. And with the Xtreme Penetrator, I actually get 2,243 feet per second on average for a muzzle energy of 3,407 foot-pounds. And the Xtreme Hunter, I actually get 2,158 feet per second on average, and that's a muzzle energy of 3,360 foot-pounds. So about 100 feet per second less than what's advertised, but still a lot of energy, around 3,400 foot-pounds of muzzle energy. That's pretty significant. So I just want to show you guys up close the rifle that I'm going to be using for this test. This is a 22-inch barrel Marlin 1895 that I've customized. And this rifle is actually over 20 years old. This was my first rifle. It was a gift from my father, and it is JM stamped. This is an original Marlin 1895. It's not a Remlin. So this is a real Marlin 4570. And this cartridge carrier here is made by Mason Leather. And if you're interested in purchasing one, check out www.masonleather.com and use the promo code NY10 to get 10% off of your order. They make beautiful leather, and I just want to show you guys the design I have on the other side. I have an elk, and the reason why I chose an elk is because elk is a very special animal in Pennsylvania. It's one of the few states in the eastern United States that reintroduced elk, and it was actually the first state in the East to reintroduce elk back in the 1930s. So the elk and Pennsylvania have an interesting and special relationship. So the plywood that I'm going to be using is just regular half-inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood. And what I do is I screw all the plywood together, and I cut the plywood into 1 foot by 1 foot squares, and I screw them all together so the panels sit tight against each other, and then I shoot at the panels and see how many sheets they can penetrate through. If you want to see my other plywood penetration tests, check out my plywood penetration tests playlist. I'll leave a link to that playlist in the top right corner of your screen. And if you're interested in seeing more 4570 content, check out my 4570 playlist for all of my 4570 videos, including penetration tests, chronograph tests, and various other types of content. So let's get started with the test. All right, guys, 4570 versus plywood, part 2. First shot's gonna be the Underwood ammo Xtreme Penetrator, which is made out of brass. Second shot is gonna be the Xtreme Hunter, which looks to be like a copper alloy. So let's see what happens here. Alright guys, I'm going to take 2 more shots. Same thing, first shot will be the Xtreme Penetrator, second shot will be the Xtreme Hunter. Alright guys, so I just want to show you the initial results before I separate all these sheets of plywood, and it appears that the Xtreme Penetrator penetrated deeper than the Xtreme Hunter, which is not surprising, but it looks like we penetrated through 24 sheets of plywood with the Xtreme Penetrator. You can see the Xtreme Penetrators here, and they're actually backwards. Okay, they're backwards. That's the base of the bullet there. So this is one reason why these bullets are not the best for dangerous game protection, because they do tumble. Okay, they don't stabilize well. So one interesting thing though is that the impact and the energy separated some of the plywood here. Okay, and I should have actually done a better job at screwing these together, but you can actually see it appears that the Xtreme Hunters here separated some of the plywood. Okay, look at this huge separation here between the plywood. These are all screwed together. So I'm going to pull all of these sheets apart now, and we're going to go through them one by one. I'm going to recover the bullets. We're going to take a look at the bullets up close to see if they deformed. We're going to see what kind of wound channel these bullets created in the plywood. But initial results, the Xtreme Penetrators did not penetrate more than 24 sheets of regular 1/2-inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood. And that's about the same amount of penetration as a .308 Winchester with M80 ball. I did the same test with my AR .308 with a 16-inch barrel, and the M80 ball full metal jackets penetrate just over 25 sheets and upwards from there. So it's a good amount of penetration. I mean, this is, 24 sheets of 1/2-inch plywood. That's 12 inches of plywood. That's a lot of wood to penetrate through, but not a lot more penetration than a .308 with full metal jackets. So I'm going to pull apart all these sheets now, and we're going to go through them one by one, so stay tuned. All right, guys, so I want to share the results of the test with you. So pretty interesting results, kind of what I was expecting. The Underwood ammo, 305 grain, Xtreme Penetrator for the 4570 out of a 22-inch barrel, penetrated through 24 sheets of regular 1/2-inch 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood. And the Underwood ammo, 325 grain Xtreme Hunter for the 4570 out of my 22-inch barrel Marlin 1895, penetrated through 22 sheets. Okay, so pretty interesting results. Kind of what I was expecting. These Xtreme Penetrators and Xtreme Hunters are not really designed for super deep penetration. They're designed to be a hybrid between an expanding bullet and a solid flat nose bullet. So they're kind of a mix between a pure penetrator and a pure expanding bullet. So just to give you a comparison of some other cartridges I've done this test with the Buffalo Bore 380 grain mono metal for the 4570, I could penetrate through 33 sheets, and the 300 Win Mag with 180 grain flat nose solids going at about 2,850 feet per second, I could penetrate through 38 sheets. Okay, so that kind of gives you an idea more or less what kind of penetration to expect with a 4570 Xtreme Penetrator and Xtreme Hunter. So kind of what I was expecting. Like I said, these are not made for super deep penetration. They're made to be a penetrator that also has some characteristics of an expanding bullet. It can generate some hydrostatic shock because of the cutouts in the nose. They kind of act like an expanding bullet when they pass through something. They generate a shock wave through tissue or, you know, whatever media you're shooting at. So I want to just go through all of these boards with you now. If you're interested in seeing those other cartridges tested against plywood, I'll leave links in the top right corner of this video, but you can check out my plywood penetration tests playlist for all of my plywood penetration tests, including 45-70, 300 Win Mag, 416 Ruger Elephant Gun, 10 millimeter, 44 Magnum, 500 Magnum, 308. They're all in there. 12 gauge slugs. All right. So check out my plywood penetration tests if you really want to see how these cartridges stack up against other cartridges. Okay. So what I did was I screwed the plywood into blocks of 6 sheets. Okay. I used 3-inch screws to hold them all together. So I screwed 6 sheets together at a time, and then I would put the 6 sheets that are screwed together into these blocks, and I would then screw those blocks together. That's how I held them all together tightly. All right, so this is the first block of 6. All right, so there's your plywood. You can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Just regular 3-ply southern yellow pine plywood, you know, exterior sheathing that you would find on a stick frame house in the United States. So here we had our 2 Xtreme Penetrator shots, and then here we have Xtreme Hunter and Xtreme Hunter. Okay, so here's our very first sheet, and here's the back of the first block of 6 sheets. So this is the back of the 6th sheet. And here are our exit holes from the Xtreme Penetrators here and Xtreme Hunters here. And you can see not much of an exit hole, okay? Almost kind of like a solid, just a little tiny hole there. A little bit more than a solid would do, but not much, okay? Nothing like an expanding bullet. So, you know, these Xtreme Penetrators, they don't generate the same amount of hydrostatic shock as a regular expanding bullet does, but still you can see some nice exit holes here. So that's the first block of 6, and here we have the second block of 6. Okay, here we have our entrance holes in the 7th sheet here. Okay, you can see that characteristic screwdriver shape holes that these rounds leave in different media because of the way they're shaped. You'll usually see kind of like a screwdriver shape. If you look really closely, you can kind of see like a Phillips head screwdriver wound channel, okay? Especially on the Xtreme Hunter. Now, the Xtreme Hunters are made of copper, and the Xtreme Penetrators are made of brass. So, because of that, the Xtreme Hunters don't penetrate as much, okay? Because they have a softer material, and they just flatten out a little bit. And here's the back of the second block of 6. So this is the back of the 12th sheet. You can see our exit holes. Not much different than the exit holes in the back of the first block or the back of the 6th sheet. Pretty much they look the same, okay? And here we have our third block of 6, all right? And here are our entrance holes. And you can see one of the Xtreme Penetrators is starting to tumble at this point. This is the 13th sheet, okay? Because you see how this hole here kind of looks like a keyhole. And so this Xtreme Penetrator is already in tumble stage. The other ones are not. They're still mostly straight, okay? And here's the back of the third block of 6. This is the back of the 18th sheet. And you can see the exit holes here are a little bit bigger, okay? But still nothing too crazy. I mean, they're pretty big, don't get me wrong. You know, good size, especially these from the Xtreme Penetrator. But these are so big because the Xtreme Penetrator was starting to tumble at this point. So the bullet wasn't going straight through, it was tilted, okay? And because of that, it left this big hole here in the back of the 18th sheet, all right? And finally, we have our last block of 6, which I disassembled so we could take a closer look. So here is the 19th sheet, and you can see that they're all basically keyholing now. Okay, the nose is pointed up rather than straight forward. Okay, and that's why you get these keyhole shapes here. All right, these vertical shapes, because they're all pointing upwards, or maybe even they're backwards at this point. So this is the 19th sheet. Here we have the 20th sheet, and you can see those keyholes there. Okay, here we have the 21st sheet. Look at that keyhole there from one of the Xtreme Penetrators. The Xtreme Hunter's keyholing pretty bad. So they're all in tumble stage at this point. So still, that does a lot of damage, but if you're looking for absolute straight line penetration, it's not what you want. And here we have the 22nd sheet, okay? And you can see one of the Xtreme Hunters is in there, and it's a little bit backwards, okay? It's kind of pointed up to the sky. The nose is pointed up, but it's actually pointed a little bit backwards, okay? It's angled a little bit towards the shooter. And as you can see, the base there, all right? So that's how one of the Xtreme Hunters ended up, kind of backwards. All right, this is the 22nd sheet. And then here we have the 23rd sheet, and one of the Xtreme Hunters got stuck in the 23rd sheet, and it's completely vertical, as you can see, okay? And it didn't penetrate through the 23rd sheet. And then finally, we have the 24th sheet here, and here are the Xtreme Penetrators. You can see these Xtreme Penetrators are completely turned around and backwards, okay? And that's just crazy that they would tumble that much. But still, they did a lot of damage while they were tumbling. So there's the base of the bullet, okay? And there's the base of the other one right there, okay? So 24 sheets for the Xtreme Penetrator and 22 sheets for the Xtreme Hunter, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually pull these bullets out now, and we're going to take a closer look. But there you have it, guys. 4570 Xtreme Penetrators and Xtreme Hunters versus regular half-inch plywood. 24 sheets of plywood with the Xtreme Penetrators and 22 sheets of plywood with the Xtreme Hunters out of a 22-inch barrel Marlin 1895. All right, guys, so I managed to recover the bullets, and what you'll notice here is that the Xtreme Penetrators did not deform whatsoever. Look at those solid brass bullets, guys. These bullets are just perfectly intact. The noses did not deform whatsoever. They basically look the same as a brand new bullet. Okay, the base looks good. No deformation there. So pretty impressive, and that's why they're called the Xtreme Penetrators, because they're very hard and they can penetrate hard objects, which is what they were designed for. And here you can see with the Xtreme Hunters, the nose is flattened out quite a bit, okay? They flattened out quite a bit because if you remember the factory loads, what they look like, they have those sharper features on the nose, and those sharp features just completely flattened out, but still mostly kept their shape. But the nose definitely flattened out a little bit. You can see how it just kind of squished a little bit, squished down. But still very impressive, not much deformation, and still a ton of penetration. I mean, 22 sheets of plywood, guys. That is just absolutely insane. So you definitely don't want to use these for home defense if you live in an area with a lot of houses around you, because chances are you might penetrate through all of the houses on your street. So that's pretty much it, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. Check out my 4570 playlist for all of my 4570 content. Check out my plywood penetration tests playlist for all of my plywood penetration tests. I'll leave a link to those playlists in the top right corner of this video. Other than that, thanks for watching. Take care. God bless. And don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere.